Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. Today, I am joined by city, state, and federal officials to unveil a new initiative to combat gun violence here in Louisville. Since taking office, one of my top priorities has been and will continue to be making Louisville a safer place for everyone to call home, for everyone to visit, for everyone to work in our city. It's simply unacceptable how many people in Louisville are mourning the loss of a child, a parent, a friend, to gun violence. I know firsthand the devastation that gun violence can cause. Far too much impact on our city. We are fortunate here in Louisville that under the leadership of Chief Jacqueline Gwynn Biller-Roel, 2023 saw a drop in homicides and non-fatal shootings. Initiatives like the Non-Fatal Shooting Squad and other efforts have helped fuel this decline. This progress is encouraging, but we all recognize that we must do more. We must see more progress, quicker, because one person lost to gun violence is one too many. To make our city safer, we must take a more urgent and strategic approach to addressing violent crimes. We must build on the strategies that LMPD is already using and help them by collaborating with other partners in a multi-agency approach to address this critical issue. Which brings us to why we are here today. If you'll look around, you'll see that in addition to the chief and other members of LMPD, we're also joined by Commonwealth Attorney Jarena Weathers and some of her colleagues. We're joined by Jefferson County Attorney Mike O'Connell and several of his colleagues. We're joined by ATF Special Agent in Charge Gibbs and some of his colleagues. And we're joined by Deputy Attorney General Rob Duncan and other of his colleagues from the state's Attorney General Office. In October, this group came together with one goal: to reduce violent crime in Louisville. From that meeting, a new initiative came forward, the Prohibited Firearms Possessors Initiative, or PFP. This is a unified effort between our administration, prosecutors, LMPD, and federal partners such as the ATF to identify and prosecute repeat firearm offenders. We saw an opportunity to work together through a multi-agency approach to be more proactive and ultimately identify repeat offenders to get them off the streets and make Louisville safer. Since that first discussion, LMPD formed a unit dedicated to this effort. The Commonwealth Attorney's Office identified prosecutors to lead investigations, and that first meeting took place very recently on January 8th. 4 cases have been identified and reviewed to test and examine this process, and this group will continue to meet on a monthly basis. I am so encouraged by this collaboration and by this commitment of all of these federal, state, and local agencies to make Louisville a safer city. You're now going to hear from several folks that are very involved in this initiative. You'll hear from Chief Jackie Gwynn Biller-Roel, Lieutenant Colonel Crowell, Lieutenant Fox from LMPD, our Commonwealth Attorney, Jarena Weathers, our County Attorney, Mike O'Connell, and the ATF Special Agent in Charge, Gibbs. You will hear from them in sequential order, and then I'll conclude and we'll be happy to take some questions. So first, let me turn it over to our LMPD Chief of Police, Jacqueline Gwynn Biller-Roel. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. The top priority of any police department is to provide the safest environment possible for our residents, visitors, and businesses. That is the mission of your LMPD. We had many successes last year that show progress in the right direction, but we still have work to do. As the mayor has stated, we formed the non-fatal shooting unit and saw great results. The unit is comprised of well-trained officers whose sole function is to investigate non-fatal shootings with the same level of resources imparted by and for homicide investigations. Our criminal interdiction division obtained 80 federal indictments on violent criminals last year, Those individuals are our trigger pullers, individuals trafficking illegal, dangerous narcotics. CID alone seized about 300 firearms last year. Many of those guns were stolen or in possession of convicted felons. Last year, we reduced non-fatal shootings by 8%, and we continue to show a reduction in our homicide numbers. Carjackings dropped by 26%. Additionally, many community members joined officers in each division last year to meet their beat officers, as well as Stop the Violence community outreach events, because collaboration with our community is very important to combat violent crime. We graduated 3 Metro Academy classes, putting more officers on the street to help with this initiative. And Metro Council generously contributed $50,000 to train 21 additional officers for our gang-resistant educational training program in our schools for our young citizens. The program is designed to help keep our children safe. LMPD is a part of that process. It is my responsibility as your police chief to ensure that our LMPD is doing everything in our power to make our community safe as we possibly can. But again, the community, we need your help. And while we are taking strides in the right direction, we will continue to do more. We now have another tool to help us in our layered approach towards removing violent offenders from Louisville's neighborhoods. I strongly believe that our new Prohibited Firearms Possessors initiative will help us further our goal in combating gun violence. At this time, I would like to introduce to you Lieutenant Colonel Aaron Kroll. He is LMPD Support Bureau Commander, and Lieutenant Kroll will walk us through how the PFP initiative will operate.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon. I'm excited to announce our newest initiative to combat gun crime here in Louisville. As you're all aware, the Louisville Metro Police Department has undergone a transformation in how we address violent crime in our city over the last 3 years. We have instituted a much more intelligence-led, surgical approach, which focuses on confronting the specific individuals who are disproportionately driving violence in our community. This approach is paying dividends, but we recognize that we still have a great deal of work to do in order to provide the residents of Louisville with the level of safety and security they deserve. Part of that effort is to continuously update and improve our processes in crime prevention and enforcement, but also in our post-arrest efforts to ensure that we are holding our most violent offenders accountable to the fullest extent of the law. The Prohibited Firearms Possessor Initiative is a collaborative effort between LMPD, ATF, and the offices of the Jefferson County Attorney, the Commonwealth's Attorney, and the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Kentucky, and is aimed at accomplishing just that. This is an internal accountability measure as well as an intelligence sharing mechanism which provides a framework for a more informed and coordinated prosecution of our most violent and persistent offenders. We recognize there are voids in our overburdened criminal justice system, and that conducting business as usual has allowed many violent offenders to slip through those cracks, only to reoffend and further victimize the citizens of Louisville. This initiative is aimed at filling those cracks and providing a mechanism whereby those who insist on committing gun crimes in our city are held to account and unable to further prey upon our citizens. The level of cooperation and enthusiasm we've received from all parties involved in getting this effort off the ground is unprecedented, and I'm confident that with our combined efforts, the PFP initiative will play a significant role in reducing violent crime in our city. I would now like to introduce Firearms Intelligence Section Commander, Lieutenant Drew Fox, who will be the program coordinator for LMPD to further explain our efforts.
Thank you for the opportunity to elaborate on the Prohibited Firearms Possessor Project. This initiative is a data-driven, focused strategy for addressing the criminal cases involving firearms. As mentioned already, this new project is comprised of several team members who aim to successfully prosecute some of the most prolific offenders on the streets of Louisville today. The PFP project team firmly rejects a one-size-fits-all approach, steering clear of broad strokes that often lead to unintended consequences. This project is not a wide-cast net or a declaration of war on guns. Our emphasis lies specifically on prohibited firearms possessors who contribute to the prevailing violence in our city. This project is a coordinated effort to bolster firearm-related cases post-arrest offering support to the hardworking patrol officers committed to service and safety for all in our city. Through the collaborative effort of this multidisciplinary team, the Prohibited Firearms Possessor Project is poised to deliver the results our community demands. Thank you to everyone present here today and the additional team members who have labored diligently to launch this collaborative effort. Thank you for opening the door, Chief, and thank you to Lieutenant Colonel Kroll for breathing new life into this initiative in a manner that ensures results for the citizens of Louisville and upholds public safety for years to come. While we acknowledge that incarceration alone cannot solve the violence problem, for some, a very small few, I would say, it becomes a necessary measure to protect the rest of our city. The goal is safety of every citizen in every neighborhood. That is what this new approach to gun crime and the Prohibited Firearm Possessor Project is all about. Those seeking to perpetuate violence in our city should not presume that nothing will be done. I assure you, we will do everything in our power to ensure that they swiftly discover otherwise. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here today. This is a very, very important, pivotal moment. A lot of us have been in the city for a very, very long time. And what our office is ready to do is to move forward to make sure that we continue to build bridges with integrity, transparency, and everything that we can do to make sure that we can make a change in this city. It's going to take one moment at a time, but this is absolutely something that we need to do as we move forward with this new model and new paradigm. What I will share with you is this. We have 44 prosecutors that are working to make sure that 780,000 of our citizens are being safe. So we take this very, very seriously. And we have a wonderful group of people that are ready to move forward. As you've heard before, we've already met. And this is something that we've never seen before. Behind the scenes, being able as a group to work through this, not divided, but try to figure out how we can pinpoint, not everyone, but those that we need to be intentional about, those who are just wreaking havoc in our city. We've got seniors that don't want to come out, over 65 years and older. We have our children that we're trying to deal with. So in our office, we do have a new juvenile justice prosecutor that will deal with specific issues with the county attorney's office. But let me make this very clear. We also need to make sure that we get the right people off the streets so we can stop this hemorrhaging of what's happening in our city. So we are looking forward to it in our office. We also specifically have our most seasoned prosecutors that are going to work in this with this initiative, especially in our violent crimes unit. We have a specific unit that are dealing with not just violent crimes, but those crimes that we are dealing with guns. So this is a think tank of sorts. It's a multi-agency approach consisting of experts providing very specific information and possible solutions to one common problem and issue that we have in our city. It's an intelligent approach, as you've heard. All of us, it's going to take all of us, the necessary agencies, to take a closer look, not just with anyone. We're not trying to throw everyone in jail, but I promise you this. We need to see and figure out those persons or persons that are worthy enough to have the right for review. We are ready to move forward, do something differently, and it's about doing the right thing with the right person for the right reasons. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike O'Connell, Jefferson County Attorney. I'd like to first thank the mayor for getting this process and this program and this initiative off the ground. And he's pretty persuasive, so when he talks to people about joining him into doing these things, it's a very easy thing to do. More Americans died of gun-related injuries in 2021, including murders and suicides, than in any other year on record, according to the Pew Research Center. Guns have been the leading cause of death, now listen to this, have been the leading cause of death for children and teens since 2020. Let that settle in the pit of your stomachs for just a minute. It's stark facts like these that make me toss at night sometimes, and Y and I, other partners around here, are using every approach that we can come up with and assemble to face gun violence head on. This new PFP initiative is one of those efforts. Whenever I get a chance to talk about guns, I don't want to stray too much here, but whenever I get a chance to talk about guns, one of my favorite quotes that I use and have read and to underscore the seriousness of it is, it has been called the slaughter of everyday Americans going about their daily lives. Nothing could be truer about what's going on in this country and other places at the present time. As Commonwealth Attorney Weathers said, people should feel safe while going about their daily lives in their cars, their homes, their neighborhoods. One trigger pulled or a single bullet has the power to destroy that feeling of security in an instant. And that's why all of us here have a bright red circle drawn around the repeat gun offenders. State felony cases, including most gun crimes, are largely handled in circuit court, where Commonwealth Attorney Weathers and her staff are responsible for prosecution. But we at the Jefferson County Attorney's Office play an important role in the district court as well. We were able to get a grant to have one prosecutor work exclusively on the non-fatal shootings that are occurring here. And his name is Mark Berry, and he's standing in the back, and he has an assistant that works with him every day in connection with that role. But this all includes at arraignment, the initial court appearance for a defendant. At arraignment, we advocate, when appropriate, for high bonds and other conditions like no contact orders for individuals who may be a danger to others. For any homicide cases, we task our senior prosecutors with handling possible early stage proceedings, like probable cause hearings that may be necessary in district court to move the case to the grand jury. And my office has chosen to invest even more in the last year with our commitment to prosecuting all of these gun crimes, including those that concern repeat offenders. In the 9 months between March and November 2023, now I'm going to talk about the non-fatal gun crimes. Between March and November of 2023, our non-fatal gun crimes team handled 451 cases involving 366 defendants during that period of time. Many of these cases involve victims seeking answers and support, and this does not include non-fatal cases that are handled by our juvenile court prosecutors and advocates, and we have a separate initiative with respect to the group violence intervention too that is working very heavily and diligently on that. The goal of this effort, I think, is twofold. First, to move cases through district court efficiently so they may be presented to the grand jury. Every attempt is made to avoid unnecessary delay and to ensure appropriate bonds are kept in place. Appropriate bonds are kept in place. And the second goal is to better serve victims as we strive for justice. We recognize the criminal justice system can be intimidating, and this feeling is often magnified when people experience violent gun trauma. I hope in sharing our work, it demonstrates the resolve and focus that my office has and other partners share to reduce gun violence in the city that we love so much. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is AJ Gibbs, and I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge of ATF's Louisville Field Division, covering both Louisville, Western Kentucky, and also operations of our Crime Gun Intelligence Center. I am pleased that we are all here today to discuss this important initiative aimed at reducing firearms-related crime here in Louisville. Despite some progresses and reduction in the number of shootings over the last few years, gun crime continues to threaten our city. And we know that many violent crimes are committed by a relatively small and few individuals here in the city. The Prohibited Firearms Possessor program is aimed towards repeat offenders, as you've heard here today, those with violent histories and those with recent felony convictions. The PFP program is one of many strategies that we are using to bring the most impactful cases. When Chief Gwen Villarreal took over as deputy chief a couple of years ago, We implemented a formal shooting review where ATF analysts and special agents collaborated with LMPD investigators to connect violent crimes, to identify trigger pullers, and to determine the sources of those crime guns. The shooting reviews have significantly increased intel sharing among law enforcement agencies in this community and have resulted in countless arrests for firearms-related offenses. Last year, ATF partnered with LMPD in the creation of their new non-fatal shooting unit. ATF has a specific office here in Louisville that works closely with the non-fatal shooting unit to bring both federal and state cases against those repeat violent offenders who use firearms to hurt others. And every day, ATF special agents work closely with LMPD's Criminal Interdiction Division to remove crime guns from the streets and to make arrests for firearms offenses and those who commit armed drug trafficking activities. As you've heard here today, our officers, our detectives, our agents and analysts are working with our prosecution partners to combat violent gun crime and to include the Prohibited Firearms Possessor Project. This synchronized approach leverages both the city, state, and federal authorities to use a whole-of-government approach to address this important issue in making Louisville a safer place to work and live. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Special Agent Gibbs, and thanks to everyone who shared words about how their organization and their colleagues are working to ensure that we reduce the amount of gun crime by going after these repeat offenders who continue to harm others in our city. I also want to again thank Kentucky's Deputy Attorney General, Rob Duncan, for he and Attorney General Coleman for their support and for their continued effort to ensure the safety of Louisville and the entire state of Kentucky. What you can see through this effort is our strong belief that when you are dealing with a challenging, complicated issue, like making our city safer, reducing gun violence, you have to work together in partnership. And we are committed, all of us at the local, state, and federal level, to work together in partnership to do everything that we can to make Louisville a safer city and end this gun violence epidemic that we are dealing with. Thank you all so much for coming, and we are happy to take a few questions from the media.
Mayor Greenberg, this is something that we have discussed in the past. You say a lot about collaboration. However, the judicial system plays a large role in this. I am aware of judges refusing to sign warrants. They are signing arrest warrants as summons instead. Then there's the issue of repeat offenders with violent histories being allowed to get an ROR or being placed on HIP, even after breaking the previous terms of HIP. Have you spoken to judges specifically, and are they a part of the solution, or are they still resistant to having a more targeted approach?
We need the judicial branch to be a part of the solution. All of us here today from the local, state, and federal levels are going to do our part. We are going to find individuals responsible for committing gun violence in our city. We are going to bring charges against those individuals, and we are going to prosecute, as you can tell from you heard from County Attorney O'Connell and from Commonwealth Attorney Weathers, we are going to prosecute those crimes to the fullest extent possible. We need the support of our judicial system to make that happen. They are very aware of our view on this, of our need, our city's need for their cooperation and for their focus on these gun violent crimes and gun violent offenders, repeat firearm offenders in particular, to make our city safer. Let me add one more thing to that as well, and if anyone else would like to comment. Over the past year or so, we can provide these details specifically. 6 individuals who were out on home incarceration are victims of homicide in our city. So there are individuals, not only do we need individuals to be incarcerated because of the crime and the harm they have caused to citizens of Louisville, but there are also individuals that because of the cycle of violence and retaliation that is going on in our city, where gangs are targeting one another and retaliating, those 6 individuals would have been safer had they been incarcerated. That's something else that we want to make sure that all of our friends in the judicial branch are aware of as well. Anybody else? Yeah.
Natalia, I actually appreciate the question. And we know that this has been going on for a long time. And I'm not here to bash any of the judges. I understand that they too have a lot of cases, and they're trying to figure out what to do on the level with the bench. But the difference here is that there might be some information that we know that we're trying to work through that will allow us to bring our partners in. There may be some times where we may not be in state court. That's why we have the other partners here, and that's why they're ready. That's why we actually made sure that we met, try to be very strategic and intentional about what we do as we move forward. And I'll share with you, it's not 100% proof, full proof of what we can do, but we do understand the judges have their job, but we also have a job to do as well. So that's why we have, you have ATF here, you have Mr. Duncan here from the Attorney General's office. So let's see if we can try to figure out and do something a little different.
You guys mentioned 4 cases or a handful of cases being identified and reviewed. Can you guys walk me through what exactly that looks like? What is identifying and reviewing? Can you give some specifics on what we're looking at here?
The 4 cases.
Yeah. Specifics, no. I mean, the gist of it is it's an intelligence product. And one of the issues to your question that we've had in the past is that oftentimes the prosecutors are not getting the full picture that we may have. We need to do a better job of providing that information on the front end so they can identify these cases to be prosecuted more fully. But as far as criteria, I mean, it's going to be, as we stated before, I mean, even to be in consideration, you have to be prohibited by law, possessing a firearm, and committed a new gun crime. So that's just a start. And then that's an increasingly narrow funnel as you go forward with gang involvement, criminal activity, shooting involvements, a whole myriad of other things. So we're not going to get into a whole lot of specifics about the criteria, just that it is a very high bar, which is why we're starting off with such a low number of cases. We expect that to grow, but we want to keep that very tight and intentional to make sure that we don't water down this initiative with inappropriate cases or individuals that don't belong there.
What kind of information is being shared now that wasn't previously?
It's not so much that it's being, prosecutors have always had access to everything we have. It's a lot of times that doesn't come into fruition until much further down the road. We're already past grand jury hearings. We're already past, pleas being offered and things like that before they're getting the full picture. So we're trying, if you're arrested with a gun tonight, Lieutenant Fox is going to have that information tonight or tomorrow morning. That's going to start that process immediately. And if we identify that individual to be someone who this initiative should be focused upon, then they're going to get a complete packet with everything you could ever want to know about this is the right case, here's why. And then we want to have our partners saying, I'm taking that one and I'm owning that. So this is about accountability internally, about collaboration between all these units that you see behind me, and a focused effort on making sure that we are holding ourselves accountable to make sure that we're prosecuting these cases to the fullest extent.
Just add one more thing to what Lieutenant Colonel Kroll just said. I think he just ended on what I was going to say, which is focus. One of the big things here is focus. The priority of all of us is on reducing violent crime, and one of the ways that we know we can do that is by targeting repeat firearm offenders. And so just like the chief created a non-fatal shooting squad, there were officers that were focused on apprehending individuals who committed non-fatal shootings. But now there is a dedicated team focused on non-fatal shootings. Similarly here, this is a dedicated, focused, multi-agency team that is focused on repeat firearm possessors who continue to use guns for the wrong reason.
So are some of these homicide cases or not that far?
The homicide will be prosecuted through the homicide path. This is for just the firearm possession.
People found with guns who shouldn't have them.
Yes, that is correct.
We are all joined here because of the victims that have been affected by gun violence. So what would you tell a family who has been victimized by someone who was already on HIP, who was a repeat offender found with a gun over and over and over again?
We're going to do our job, and we've got your back. You shouldn't have to deal with that. There are very few things on this police department that I've seen in my tenure that I've witnessed officers crying on, and one of them is responding to shootings and homicide scenes where families are just heartbroken and gut-wrenching, torn apart, and that's all across this city. So to those victims, this is another means to try and address that before it happens.
I'll add one more thing. One other thing to add to that as well is this was a need that the chief and I and others on LMPD and our administration saw through conversations that we had during my first year in office last year with victims' families. And so in our budget that Metro Council approved last year, there was additional funding for positions within LMPD to provide enhanced victim services, because we know that victims are not just dealing with the trauma of having a loved one that was targeted or injured or killed by gun violence, but also seeking answers. And so they deserve an enhanced level of service, somebody who will answer the phone and provide them with information, if for no other reason, to help them in their recovery. And so we added some positions to LMPD to provide additional victim services, and that's one of the things that we are also doing as well.
I can ask you one question of one of the components in all this. What would you tell the public when they go to vote for judges? How important is that decision in that booth?
I would encourage everyone to be informed about every vote you cast for judges. There are several of us who are elected officials up here today. It is very important to know where people stand on the most important issues facing our city. And I believe that one of the most important issues facing our city is focused on reducing violent crime, on improving the safety of our city, and ensuring that individuals who use guns for the wrong reasons, intending to cause harm or worse to individuals, are held accountable. That's what all of us here today are focused on doing, and we encourage our colleagues in the judicial branch to join us in this effort as well, and encourage folks throughout our city to educate themselves when making their decisions. One more question from someone else here.
PFP project team include all divisions, or how will different people within LMPD be able to contribute to this?
So the PFP project team is obviously multiple agencies that are up here right now, specific to LMPD and within the police department. This is housed under our criminal interdiction division, which has been a unit that over the last several years has several very experienced investigators who are focused in the work that they're addressing, the individuals that they're addressing. This is a supportive role to the patrol officers in all 8 divisions, all 8 patrol divisions, to go and support those individuals, whether they've got 1 year on or they've got 10 years on, to walk them through the process, expedite the process, and assist them with putting the best case together based on the evidence that they've collected to ensure that these are successfully prosecuted. And that is streamlined and very quick, going back and forth with the prosecutors, so they've got the information that Lieutenant Colonel Kroll spoke of earlier, streamlining that process, trying to get them as much information as possible, so when they're making those arguments in court, that they've got much more to stand on.
I have one more question for the Commonwealth's attorney. You had mentioned that this is not just about throwing everyone in jail, but actually, when I'm looking at some of the notes here, I mean, part of the goal here is to arrest more offenders and harshen penalties, correct?
That is correct. But what we want to make sure is that other people have said we've done this before, and especially in the courtrooms, especially a lot of us who have been in the courtrooms and looking at a voluminous amount of cases that have been stamped certain gun cases. That's not what we're looking for. We're actually looking for repeat offenders, criminals that there's always just a small amount of people that are wreaking havoc, like I said earlier. So yes, the bigger part is to get the most dangerous ones off the streets and keep them in jail. That's the whole reason why we have the initiative.
One final comment from Special Agent in Charge.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing to the question earlier about the subjects that may be out on home incarceration, reoffending. This is a part where this all of us up here, different agencies at different levels are working together. And that's something that we have talked about. And we offer opportunities where if we have a repeat offender and there is a federal nexus, we will work with the U.S. Attorney's Office for federal prosecutions in the plan and the hope that those people will be held as they're argued that they're a danger to the community from their past events, and then they will be held pending trial so that they're not out released. But this is, again, I brought up earlier, a whole of government approach. There's not one answer to this problem, but working together, we can work towards that and the mayor's goals and all of our goals. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We'll continue to keep you updated on the results of this effort. Thank you all.